So it's very rare to see bigger name. Can I help you? So it's very rare to see bigger names in the gaming community, the content creator community, playing Destiny outside of like a sponsorship, right? Destiny tends to live in its own little bubble outside the greater landscape of gaming or even first-person shooters. There's just not that much crossover for whatever reason, right? So whenever someone big from the outside comes and like takes a peek inside, it gets a good amount of attention. Mr. Raffle Waffles, aka Milo, is a premier creator in the Call of Duty world, specifically the Zombies game mode. Now, I'm not going to say that Call of Duty Zombies is anything like Destiny, but if you wanted to draw like the loosest of parallels, I'd be willing to hear you out, right? Anyway, he decided that he wanted to play Destiny for longer than just a day or like running the campaign, and that's it. I think the last thing that he played was Scourge of the Past, and the game is vastly different to what it was like back then. Plus, I don't know how much he actually played way back when, so I'm calling him a new player for all intents and purposes. So he wanted to do contest mode Sundered Doctrine and gave himself like about a week prep time to get ready. He basically did like a Destiny boot camp with a bunch of Destiny creators, played a ton, and he was actually able to beat the contest mode after, I mean, I don't know how long it took him, but I know it took a while. And he was even able to do the solo flawless on his woefully undergeared character. And so after it was all said and done, I wanted to talk with him about his experience, the prep, the dungeon itself, the parallels or non-parallels of Destiny versus Call of Duty Zombies, what he likes, what his insights were on the whole experience. And I wanted this insight because, again, it is rare to get this kind of insight and take on the game, not only from a new player, quote unquote new player, but someone very experienced with shooters, with covering shooters, doing content on them. And I thought it was a very refreshing conversation. I know a lot of us can be a bit more jaded about the game, and so to listen to someone without that jaded feeling, maybe not yet anyway, to listen to someone give a positive perspective on the game was just kind of nice, especially during what has been some, I would say relatively tumultuous times. This video is that conversation. It is basically all conversation, so you don't need to actually watch. I would absolutely listen to it as a podcast. The full conversation is over in the live tab on my channel, but I know most of you never venture over there at all, so I wanted to make it a dedicated upload to give it a little bit more life because I thought it was a fun conversation. It is edited down from the full thing over on the live tab, but I think we kept like the overwhelming majority of the talking points. So like, don't worry about having to watch this and then going over to watch the live tab. So yeah, thanks for clicking on this in the first place. I know a 2-hour long video is a very scary thing to see in your feed, but I hope that you enjoy.
Hello, gamer. How is your wonderful Valentine's Friday going so far?
It's going pretty good. I'm here with my date.
Is date chat right now, or?
It's my doggy.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh, he's
honestly.
doing a big yawn.
Oh, big yawn.
How you doing, dude?
I'm pretty good. I beat the dungeon last week, and then I slept for about 4 days.
Yep, that's how it goes.
I was like, oh, it's a little quiet this like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then I realized that everyone was doing the same thing as me. We're just catching up on sleep.
Yeah, no, the first week of like a new episode or expansion cycle, anything like that, is usually incredibly exhausting. For me, yeah. I run the raid, I do the raid race, and then from the moment I log off until the guide is done, all I do is just work on the guide nonstop. And then as soon as it's over, my body just collapses, and then that's when I can kind of get back to my normal routine.
Yeah, the challenge in Zombies is it's like flipped the other way around, where you've got the week of build-up, and then you've got the raid as like a capstone moment for that week of build-up. Whereas with us, the Easter egg hunt or the raid race, if you want to sort of call it the equivalent of that,
Yeah.
happens first. So we'll do whatever it is, our 12-hour hunt or something to get the Easter egg solved, and then I'll go straight into making the guide just in the same stream. I just keep it going. I get the guide done ASAP. But then it's like, okay, I now have the rest of the map to explore. So it's like, okay, figure out the side quests, figure out the story, do the cutscene reactions, do the this, do that. And so it's all after the raid race sleep deprivation, which sucks.
Yeah. For the equivalent for us, I guess would just be like us going in to do like one encounter, and then everyone rushes to make the guide, and then does like another encounter, and then rushes to make a guide, as opposed to just like doing it all at once. But yeah, it's just
and
so much prep.
If your last encounter of the race was the thing you did first as well.
Yeah.
So like you kill Riven, and then it's like, okay, let's go kill her minions kind of vibe.
Right.
That sort of thing. It's weird. I'm not personally sure which is better. I think there's a lot that in the Destiny model I'm like, oh my god, why don't they do this in zombies? It would be so cool. But then at the same time, it would be a very different game for that to be the way that Call of Duty operated, to like actually make it a race in that way.
That's some stuff that I want to talk to you about, because like really I just want to chat with you, because you know the Destiny community, so we for lack of a better term, we don't get a lot of outsider, we don't get a lot of like people from other games, from other communities coming in to our community. So like whenever it does, it's usually like a very big deal. It's like, did you hear that this person's gonna be playing Destiny? And everyone's just like, whoa, that's crazy, like that's so cool, because you know we just don't Destiny does not get a lot of good press for,
it's like they're playing Destiny, the dead game.
Right.
Really?
It's like whenever Destiny comes up in the news, if it's bad news, people are like, yeah, fuck that game. But if it's ever good news, people are like, I don't care. So it's just very rare to have people come in from the outside and like experience this game, which we all give it for like a lot of the time. But I think everyone knows at its core is still a very fun experience, like just purely gameplay wise.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested to hear how people react to like their first time playing, or like their first time doing a raid, or first time doing a dungeon or a contest thing, or you know, something like that. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I don't know if you want to like run the dungeon.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Shall we run the dungeon while
I'm down. I'm down if you want to, yeah. But I'm also down to just like literally sit in the tower and yap for 2 hours. I don't care.
It will be my first non-contest completion of the dungeon.
So you haven't even gone back yet?
No, I've been fast asleep. I've been snoozing.
Okay.
I'm recharging those batteries. So.
I think you will find it a much more casual but still enjoyable experience. That was the wrong button. Enjoyable experience. Can you give me an example of like an Easter egg in just literally pick like any one of them? Yeah, like how the process is for you figuring out mechanics compared to something like Destiny. Over the years, we've learned like there's certain rules and things that, you know, that we should learn to look out for. Like even this right here, this giant beam of light, even activating the encounter and seeing this thing rotate and seeing a bunch of holsters everywhere, it's kind of like, okay, they want us to bounce light certain places, and you kind of go from there. But Call of Duty Zombies, I got no idea what that process even looks like.
Just it's all there, ready to be investigated, and in terms of problem solving, you are really not standing there going like, okay, what's the puzzle design in front of me right now? It could instead be something like, do we randomly need to do this faster for this to work?
Oh my god.
It's pretty frustrating in that regard. Like an example I can give you before we start this encounter here is in the most recent Zombies map, there are some crystals that need to be lit up. They need to be sort of interacted with in a certain way, but just think about it as just them being lit up. And at first, people one team got past that step, and they were like, I don't know how we did it. We just lit the crystals up, and like that's all we seem to have done. But they weren't sure what the cause was for them having cleared the step.
Yeah.
And it took a couple of hours for other teams to realize that you just needed to light those crystals up within a 10-second time period. There's no prompt telling you that 10 seconds is the magic number. There's no in-game clock that's counting down. There's no buff that's timing out. There's no mention of it from an NPC. There's nothing. It's just arbitrarily 10 seconds. And if you do it that fast, an arbitrary change happens. And if not, you don't get the clear on that step, which is very annoying, as you can imagine.
We had this puzzle called Niobe Labs a few years ago, and there is something very similar to that, where there was a thing that you had to shoot on the wall, and everyone had to shoot it with a particular weapon, but you all had to do it at the same time. And basically nobody tried that, and nobody knew that you needed to do it at the same time. And people were stuck on that puzzle for about, I want to say multiple days, because people had tried it, but no one had really tried it like at the same time. Or it was at the same time, or maybe it was like one right after another, like super quick. Because I remember my team
probably have like a short window for desync, right?
Yeah, probably, you'd think like maybe a second or so. But yeah, Niobe Labs might be like the closest thing to sort of like a zombies experience, but it's in a much, much smaller arena.
I'm pretty confident the dev studio that worked on Niobe Labs, whose name I can't remember right now, got pulled off Destiny. And I think they were an Activision studio, and I think they might have ended up either working on zombies at some point, or maybe on some other sort of similar Activision IP. Vicarious Visions, that was their name.
Yeah, Vicarious Visions or High Moon.
Yeah, and High Moon is just like, they work on Call of Duty stuff all day long. That's all they do these days, right? So the fact that it was a puzzle involving that kind of logic to figure out, and then that is just the zombies' DNA. That was quite funny that that's where they ended up.
That's probably the closest thing we've gotten to zombies.
So more like an escape room almost.
Kinda, yeah, kinda. So what was your experience like solving this this arena?
This one was good. We did this in about 3 hours, I think it was.
Okay.
And yeah, we had a good time. I was struggling with getting blown up by husks. That was annoying, but everything else was, we drew a little map. Yeah, it was good. And as we go here, I'm gonna in real time need to remember how it works. So
that's fine.
I will be a little slow on the uptake here, but should be okay. I don't think I've got Truth Teller in my room.
Well, we have Pyramid Stop, so it could be selection of things, but I'm going to just double check. I also want to ask about the actual gameplay and combat experience compared to something like a Zombies, because you came in on contest mode. You came in at, like, contest is arguably the hardest like difficulty of a thing that we have in this game. You know, we have like Grandmaster content, but it's still tuned a little bit differently compared to some other things. And Grandmaster used to be much more difficult, but is now a much simpler or slightly easier experience because we've kind of power crept. So I'm interested in what the Zombies experience is like combat wise compared to something like Destiny, where the combat challenge is a very integral part of the experience for contest mode.
I think this might surprise some people. I think Destiny is easier than you guys say it is. I'm gonna be straight up. Scarrow told me it would take me 5 months to finish a raid on contest. 5
I don't know
months.
about that.
And like, granted, I think he was saying that for comedy a little bit. Like, contest was not that bad. Granted, it was hard. Like, it took us 29 hours to get our clear. There's a healing nade for you. Here's a rift for you as well.
Thank you.
But I mean, generally, like,
dump your lens over here in this one
on the right hand side. Yeah.
Destiny's a weird game in that if you know what you're doing and like you understand build crafting and you understand like weapon rolls and how to take advantage of your character and all that kind of stuff, it's a pretty easy game. The problem is that if you don't do those things, the game is incredibly difficult and dense and tough to navigate. But you are someone who has a lot of like FPS kind of experience, and maybe you're not, the most familiar with building an Arc Warlock kit or something like that, but you can kind of be guided along the way, and a lot of it can be just, just pure FPS thumb skill and all that kind of stuff.
I think the main difficulty check in Destiny was, it basically just was not combat difficulty. It was knowing what I needed to know, like what was relevant information to me and what wasn't. And I got very lucky. Salt spent like 3 hours with me about 3 days before the dungeon came out, and he was like, okay, this is how the loadout system works. And I was like, wait, there's a loadout system? Oh, by the way, our symbol is Hive.
Okay.
So yeah, he was like, this is how the loadout system works. I didn't even know it was there. So I was like, wow, you can save loadouts? That's crazy. Like, thanks for telling me that, right?
Yeah.
His breakdown of like, okay, you're gonna have, this is what a surge is. This is what armor charges do. This is how you're gonna want to think about what weapon you're gonna choose to do damage against the boss. Like, Are you going to be using a linear fusion rifle this season? Maybe you are, because particle reconstruction's a thing. Like, all those sorts of things. Had I not had some kind of source of truth telling me this is what's relevant, this is what's going to make a difference to you, then it would have been infinitely more difficult. Like, absolutely agreed. It's just the fact that we did manage to get some of those things done in my overall marathon scheduling that meant that I could relax a little bit on that front.
I'm grabbing the next truth speaker. We want to go darkness next, which I want to say is L2. I'm just double checking right now.
Is L2 the right hand side of the left hand side? Because we color coded them when we did my
Yeah, I've learned, like, my clan is infamous for having the most insane, absurd callouts of all time.
Hell yeah.
Maybe only rivaled by a creator named Frostbolt.
Second one is first one is second, third one is third.
So I've been recently I've been adapting the KISS philosophy, keep it simple, stupid. So I've just been like, this L1, L2, as R1, R2, done. Move on to the next.
Do we want to go top middle? Is that how we want to get that?
You can get rid of these guys. I thought we had Hive done. I thought we chained it over, but it's possible someone accidentally hit the thing.
Wait, do we not have a timer right now?
No, so we're on normal mode. The timer is a contest-specific thing.
That's contest only? Oh my, bro, we're chilling. What?
Yeah, dungeons are very, very, very forgiving because they are also designed to be soloable, but it's more of like a very special achievement to be able to do it solo. Like it's you know, there's like a whole emblem related to it and blah, blah, blah. So they're usually like a pretty big challenge, but Bungie designs them to be solo. So the timer must be significantly more forgiving because you're by yourself. So contests, that is all about execution of the strategy and having to go fast. On normal mode, you have a lot more luxuries because it's not.
Do we have infinite revive tokens?
Yeah, we do.
Oh my god, dude, it's
a
so
much more relaxed environment. Much more relaxed environment.
I'm coming, Jin. I got you.
Yeah, so that's why we can just kind of like mess around right now and just kind of be yapping. Beam into here, beams into here. This is like I think one of the more tedious encounters, just because you actually have to send a lot of different things to a lot of different places, and if people aren't paying attention, it can take a little while. So I'm gonna flip this.
Remind me what darkness symbol is? Which one is that?
It's like the sun if it was reversed or like inverted in color.
Yeah. What do you think of the Dread as an enemy type for a dungeon? Because their stasis stuff is so annoying. I am not a fan, I have to say.
I thought enemy design in this place, not enemy design, because I do like the Dread. It had actually been a while since we've gotten some new enemies to the game, and they came out with Final Shape, and they are definitely tough combatants. But in terms of where Bungie placed the enemies to inflict maximum pain on people, I thought was one of the best setups they have ever done, like in terms of where they put enemies specifically to be annoying. It didn't feel very.
Can you elaborate on why what makes it good and what would have been bad?
They knew where people were going to be, like what they were going to be doing in what situations, right? So for example, this room right here, you know that you're gonna be like looking at all the lenses and like trying to figure out where they bounce and reflect to. And so they have these super annoying melee enemies constantly respawning, constantly chasing you down. And then if you kill them in a certain way, that little bug pops out of them and tries to seek you down. But if you kill a bunch of them all at once and you're next to those little seekers when they come out, you're going to take a ton of damage. If not, they will outright kill you, right? So it makes this room much more annoying to deal with because you have these melee enemies constantly chasing you down. In the side rooms here, we have, the stasis dudes that slow you. And that is mainly so that the subjugator enemy can inflict much more damage upon you because they hit really, really hard, especially on contest mode. And if you're slowed, they also have the ability to suspend you, which leaves you just hanging in the air.
Sucks.
And you just eat tons of, like, subjugators hurt so goddamn bad.
So are you a fan of the subjugator placement in the third encounter when you go through either of the two doors and you pop out the other side and you're instantly at risk of getting like frozen by a subjugator? Are you a fan of that? Or is that like, where does that become good design and where does that become bad design in your view?
I don't mind it. I think they're never directly in your POV when you walk in the door. Like, so for example, the left side door,
they're like around a tiny corner.
Yeah, they're around a corner. So like, you know, they're there, but you're not immediately put into danger. Like, you know that like it's lurking around the corner. And if you're reckless, then yes, they'll come in and bop you. But there's enough space where you can enter somewhat freely. Maybe there's a couple of like minor, smaller enemies in your way, but those are usually not a big deal to handle. So I thought they were fine, but they are also still very, very threatening that you need to deal with them in some way before you really start doing anything else.
But yeah, so I was coming in with this outside perspective, thinking there's a boss here on the other side of these little rooms who, if we're sort of, if we have our guard down, we just walk in there, and then yeah, even though the boss is around a little corner, you are just gonna get frozen. It's gonna suck. So I like the fact that I was sort of on my toes going in, but then I also liked the fact that I had to be on my toes going out, because the main Kerev, he might have just done some more stuff to me on the other side.
I got cooked by him so many times.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about it is I think that that door, specifically, the one that you have to shoot open, is trash. I think it is absolutely awful because it undermines all of the design of the rest of that encounter. The danger on both sides of the door would be fine if the door itself wasn't also dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, it's just annoying.
Yeah, that is also a new phenomenon for us, but I think that adds a little bit to like the character of the experience. I don't know if this can even go the way that I'm thinking of.
He's finding new angles every day, chat.
Well, these lights can go like so many different directions.
So will the statements already be a full statement at this encounter? Or does that only become true once you get to the final encounter?
What do you mean?
So, like, right now, our statement is Guardian Worship.
Yeah.
So Traveler would make sense for the completed statement there, but I'm curious if the logic of the statements only actually kicks in for the third encounter, or if it's already relevant now. Like, can we assume it's Traveler basically because we know that that's the end of the statement, or can we not make that assumption?
you're talking about the final boss. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think
because in the boss we can, but here I don't know if it's already present in this encounter. Do you know what I mean?
So are you saying, like, do we know if it is like Guardian Worship light, right? Like, even when we don't have any of them filled in just yet?
No, as in the third encounter, the sum of their parts, right?
Yeah.
That was like a full truth or lie statement. Whereas here, at this point when I was solving it, I wasn't thinking about story cohesion at all. I was just thinking like match symbol to whatever the truth seeker says.
Yes.
So
yeah. All
can
of
we
that
shortcut
is...
finding the third seeker by knowing the story and saying, okay, Guardian Worship, and then knowing that the third one has to be probably either Light or Traveler, I'm assuming.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
That's cool that's already
you can draw those
place.
conclusions. I need one lens and we're done over here.
One thing I think could have been improved with this encounter is I would have liked for there to be some kind of more distinct element in each room. Like, for example, if you look on the ceiling in here and the ceiling was like a color or something, so that you could easily look where, like, within the room, you could look up and be like, oh, I know I'm in L1. Whereas as it stands right now,
looks like every other room.
Yeah, it's not super immediately obvious. I think it would be nice for there to be like a, once you know, there's a smart tell. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, a lot of it does just kind of come down to memorization of just like, like once you do this enough, you'll know. Like, I could see any one of these rooms and be like, oh yeah, that's R2, that's L1. I think part of the learning experience though is learning what each of those rooms does look like, and the more you can memorize what those places look like and where things are spawning in and all that kind of stuff, that is also part of learning the game, learning the experience. And learning these encounters.
Yeah, I guess it's
but I mean, if you also want to color, you're color coding things, people come up with all sorts of different call outs for all these different rooms and all these different mechanics and all that kind of stuff. So it just kind of comes down to what did you do for your team, and then you just kind of stick with that.
Just getting reps in as well. I feel like that's like
totally
ends up being a big
part
of it.
Because I've gotten a lot of reps by now, and I'm like, yeah, L1 over here. The only thing I need to figure out is just like the laser, they're the light beam map.
How many clears do you have, do you reckon, roughly?
At this point, it wouldn't surprise me if I was close to a dozen.
Oh, damn. Wow.
And I've done
a grinder in the...
I've done a master. Yeah. Well, I mean, like,
You've done a master as well. Nice.
Pretty easy pinnacles. And this early in the episode, like, I'm not even close to, high level yet. So it's really, really easy to get the pinnacles. Oh, thanks, Jin. To just, like, run this place in, like, I don't know, 30 to 40 minutes and get some easy stuff. But I've also been going into like
turn your brain
trying
off
to get-
kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I've also done like a master, which is really not that hard at all. I was anticipating a much fiercer fight when it came to master difficulty, but I mean,
yeah,
they added in like a few champions and gave things like a little health bump, and that was it. So master was not really that bad. Like you could probably go in and like not really struggle that much, maybe besides champions. I don't know how much combat you've done against champions.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure I know what a champion is.
That's fine.
Have I fought any of them? Were they in contest mode?
They were not in contest mode. I think they're very intentionally not in contest mode, but they are in master.
Okay, in that case, yeah, I may have fought a handful of them in the 1 or 2 master activities I've done, because like we did something master to get me the choir catalyst, I think.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't think we've done any master activities.
Okay.
So.
I
guess we've done Grandmaster Nightfalls. Are they in those?
Yes, they are.
So yeah, I'll have fought some.
Quite a large amount of numbers. Yeah, so they used to be a bit more annoying to fight against because in the before times, you only used to be able to stop them with certain weapon mods that were in the artifact, and if they weren't there, you were just kind of screwed. But in a recent expansion in Lightfall, they made it so certain subclass effects could also now stop champions, and that made, in my opinion, champion gameplay way more enjoyable because you weren't limited to 3 or 4 different weapons to stop these enemies, which meant you could have a lot more freedom with your build crafting. But if you still wanted to use the weapons, you could totally do that. The Lightfall champion changes made it much more enjoyable to fight champions.
Okay, so I've not witnessed the true pain of fighting champions pre those changes, which sounds like it was not a happy time.
People will. I don't like to exaggerate as much. People will tell you like, "Oh my god, it was the worst thing ever." It was okay. It was fine. But Lightfall definitely made it like a lot more of an enjoyable experience.
I think overall, because this is my first contest mode clear ever as well. Overall, I'm basically happy for them to just put anything in the game that makes it harder right now. I'm like, yeah, like give me more of that. Give me a double helping. Like I'm good.
Based.
Oh, speaking of which,
your elitism membership has been accepted.
I haven't played the game enough to get frustrated, I guess, at
everything's still
any
new
sort
to
of
you.
difficulty stuff. Yeah, exactly. But I could imagine after a certain amount of time, maybe I don't know, maybe I do enough, whether it's contest modes or I do enough master activities or what have you, and I can imagine then certain things maybe starting to grate. But as it stands, I'm like, hell yeah, dude, just make it, challenge me more. Like I'm so here for that. And Destiny, more than most games I've ever played, is uniquely really good at that. I think it's so cool.
I will say the game definitely does skew more towards the easier side of things.
Has it always been that way? Like, do you feel like it's become more casual over time?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think like Destiny 1 I think was a bit harder because we just didn't have nearly as much access to the tools that we have today in terms of like build crafting and strength of weapons and exotics and this and that. Like I have a machine gun on right now. In Destiny 1, this thing would hold at most maybe like 95 rounds. In Destiny today, machine guns can hold 400 to 500 rounds. Like we've increased 5x the amount of ammo like one of the best weapons in the game can hold. We've also been given so much more like build crafting tools and abilities and exotics that like just juice the hell out of our power. So I do think the game does typically lean more towards the easier side of things, because at the end of the day, it is a much more casual gaming experience.
In order to make it easier in that way, which way are they scaling it? Are they scaling it so the power creep of the Guardian is greater and therefore a difficult activity is easier? Or are they trying to sort of maintain Guardian power creep, but then making the activity itself nerfed, if that makes sense? Like, are they reducing the enemy strength or are they increasing the Guardian strength?
I would say it's mainly increasing Guardian strength. It is a little bit of both, but I do think it has shifted dramatically towards increasing Guardian strength. And as a result, as we get new tools, as we get new weapons, as we get more insane perk rolls on our weapons and this and that, it has made the experience a lot easier. Now, like, they're not like stomp mode for everybody. I think it's another one of those things where the more you actually interact with the build crafting experience in the game and the more you actually know how to fine tune your character, the easier that experience gets. But if you ask a more casual player, like, hey, you want to run this like GM real quick? They'll be like, what do you mean real quick? Like, what are you talking about?
So the last raid was Salvations, right? That was the most recent one. Would you say Salvations, if released 3 years ago, would have been harder?
Oh, totally.
Because Guardian power would have been overall, we'd have had less tools to defeat whatever is in Salvations.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. And Salvations was already like on contest. It was the longest it took any team to clear a day one. And it probably had like some of the fewest clears. I don't remember. I
think the stat is like it's like 5 clears or something, maybe. It's like very few.
Yeah, it was not a lot in the first day. But I do also think a lot of Salvation's Edge.
One team in 24 hours. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I do think a lot of Salvation's Edge was kind of figuring out mechanics because there were some insane mechanics to try to figure out in that place.
No spoilers.
And
I will be doing that blind. God,
have fun with that.
Pray for me, but I will be doing it blind.
There were some insane mechanics to figure out in that place, which I do think kind of took up the bulk of the experience. I really don't think that Bungie is capable of challenging people who at the top end in terms of a combat experience anymore because we are so ridiculously strong. Like, they would have to keep scaling things so high to like appease maybe the top 200 to 300 teams in the world, but everybody else underneath them would be like, what the hell are you? This is literally like the dumbest, unplayable garbage that you guys have ever made. But that would be the only way to truly challenge like the top 100, 200, 300 teams. It's the most competitive it's ever been. When the first raid came out in D1, Vault of Glass, my clan got first place and second place and fifth place.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. All from the same group. And there was maybe like a dozen clans like actually trying to compete. Now there are hundreds, if not thousands of groups that are insanely good at the game, insanely optimized to the point where the moment they figure out encounters, they need 1, maybe 2 runs after that. Like, once a mechanic is solved in this place, execute. And so many of these teams execute so well at the highest level.
That's an insane level of like, you wipe once and you're second kind of vibe on an encounter as well. Not even like in zombies, wiping would mean doing the whole thing again.
Yeah.
So that would mean going back to the first encounter and having to re-clear that and the second encounter and getting to the third encounter. Like, there's so much more build-up time to get there. Whereas in this, even just being set back 5 minutes while other teams are sort of on your tail is going to potentially cost you the first, which is really nuts.
That literally happened to my team. We lost a world first by 6 minutes.
6 minutes? Oof! Damn.
It was literally the difference of 1 pull. Like, we started a pull, we wiped. Another team started a pull, then we started a pull. Maybe it was even less than 6 minutes. Maybe it was 3 minutes. And they cleared, and then we cleared shortly after. It might have happened to us twice. It was Crown. Was it also Vow? Crown was 6 minutes. Vow was 2 minutes.
I mean, if you cleared 1 clear sooner on Last Wish, you would have got your contest clear as well, right?
Yes, literally yes. That is where the meme comes from.
One clear sooner is that's a crazy difference between
that's all it is.
Success and failure. Yeah.
But do I think that would have been as memorable? I don't know. Like, if we get third place in 23 hours and 30 minutes, it's like, okay, we still got third place. We got the emblem. Yeah. But the meme has
for the meme, it has more life.
In eternity.
The fact that my chat is full of 2402 salute right now.
Yeah.
That says it all. Like, that's become its own. You became Legend Guardian just for reasons that you maybe were not expecting. This encounter, this one that we're about to go into.
Yes.
Tell me if I'm wrong here, because I have real thoughts about this encounter, but I'm curious to just get your sort of fact check first.
Sure.
My impression is that out of the 3 encounters, for the majority of the Destiny community, this is the worst of the three. Is that accurate, or am I mistaken?
Define worst.
People just don't seem to like it. I've seen a lot of people just being like, I'm just not having a good time in here. I don't like the encounter design. I've seen people say that it's too tedious. I've seen people say that they just don't like the puzzle. It's too chaotic. I've seen a lot of critique just generally in like various areas about this encounter. And yeah, I'm curious if that aligns with your sort of radar of what the Destiny community has been saying.
I think on contest mode, I was very frustrated with this place because I am like on contest. I need to do a much better job of just letting go of the fact that like, yeah, we don't know exactly what's going on, but we just need, the only goal is bring the health bar down to 0. That's it.
Yeah.
And however you manage to make that happen, you just got to do that. And then you can figure it out later. It doesn't matter. Bring the HP bar to 0. But I actually think this is a very novel encounter, something that I don't feel like we've seen, because it's almost like a build your own adventure type thing. I think just a lot of people have found some loopholes in it, or maybe they're like, maybe that's an intentional loophole. I don't know. But I think conceptually, on normal mode, and now that like I actually know what the hell is going on, if you want to make this fight really easy, you can make it really easy, but it's going to take you a little bit longer. If you want to gamba on some like super speed mode, like speed run strats, you can do that, but it's going to be maybe a little bit harder to execute, which I always appreciate about any sort of an encounter. Any encounter that makes me feel smarter for learning more about it is a good thing. And by smarter, I mean being able to go quicker or deal more damage, because we do have some encounters in the game where it doesn't matter how good you get, you can only go so fast. Not as much of a problem recently as compared to like a few years ago. The faster I feel like I can move through an encounter because I have learned the encounter and I'm smart and I know all the mechanics, that to me creates a successful fight.
I'm very glad that you have said that. And I'm glad you like this encounter, because this is my favorite one out of the three.
Okay.
And this for me is like one of the favorite chunks of video gaming I've, at least with regard to puzzles, I've ever done. Like, I think this encounter is so damn cool, and if zombies had even a shred of what this has, I would be in heaven. Permanently in heaven, dude. I think it is so sick that we go in to a room where there's like, I mean, let's just do a quick head count. There's the locks in the background, there's the wheels on the sort of like close by, there's the wheel boards which show the icons in the mid ground there, and then obviously there's all the stuff that is on the wheels, so that's another 7 different things. Obviously there's duplicated symbols, but there's 7 icons on there, so there's this constant sort of rotation of stuff happening, and they just say have fun with that. Just have fun with that. To have the experience of being dropped into that sandbox with very obvious puzzle pieces and having to fit them together, and then feeling it all to come together, and feeling once you get the rhythm of it down, once you get the flow of it down, I know, oh, okay, 2 stops over here, and this one's on ogres right now, and we're going to need to change that ogres one before we change the wizards one, because ultimately I much prefer fighting wizards to fighting ogres. And like being able to balance that in real time, it feels like Bungie have got their fingers
on the surface
in my brain, and they're giving it a little massage, and they're just like prodding me, and gradually through that massage, I'm chipping the boss health down and clearing it, and it's so satisfying. Like I think the first encounter for me was not a combat difficulty challenge. It was literally just, we just needed to build our map, and once we drew our map when we were doing it blind, it was fine. We got it like a few runs after that, so it was fairly straightforward. I would say it's still very fun. Whereas this, we were getting ruined by those ogres. Like we were having a dreadful time with that. And I loved that. I was like, this is amazing that my lack of skill expression in preventing the ogres spawning in has significant negative consequences. And my own responsibility also has consequences for my whole team, because it could be ogres on the far side that I'm covering. My other teammates could have the near side of the map covered. And so like, if I'm the one that spawns the ogres in and that causes us to wipe, that's on me. That's good as well. So it's a little bit of a brain teaser, and you've got to figure out, okay, we got damage several times before we knew what was triggering damage. We were like, why the hell are we able to do damage right now? And like, why is one damage phase a minute and a half and another damage phase 20 seconds?
Yeah, like 4 seconds.
I feel like there's no other video game that does that. I've never played a game that gives you that ability to be skill checked on damage, boss, health skill, while also being checked on puzzle skill in the same room at the same time. Like peak cinema, Bungie cooked. It's a 10 out of 10. This encounter, I love it. It's so good.
I think I don't want to give any spoilers to Salvation's Edge, but I think when you see the final boss of Salvation's Edge and just see the chaos that will ensue, I think you'll find a very familiar feeling there.
It's gonna be cinema. Let's go.
It's definitely not as many, like, there's not like the wheel to keep track of and this and that, but it's like, you're presented with a scene, and the game is literally just like, figure this shit out, idiot.
Like even just this vista that I'm looking down on right now of this room, I'm like, bro, this is sick.
There's
so cool.
a lot of things that like Bungie does right all of the time.
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason that people don't talk about it as much is because it's been so consistently good for so long that it's just implied that those things will be good. Like audio, sound effects, certain visual effects, environment design, play spaces, all of those things have historically been insanely good to the point where it's just like, yep, they cooked. Yep, this is great. Yep. And again, deep down, like, yes, the Destiny community is like, game, whatever, but it's our game. And at the end of the day, everybody knows that the shooting experience in this game is second to none. Like I don't think anybody else comes close of how satisfying it is to shoot weapons, seeing enemy heads explode. And then like you were talking about a lot of the build crafting stuff, because it didn't always used to be like this. Build crafting used to be you select a small like subsector on a subclass and it would just give you some preset abilities and that would be it. And they've expanded
that's all I remember.
Greatly. Like the flaws that like we talk about, like seasonal model this, this activity that, those are like multi-100 hour to 1,000-hour problems. You are getting to experience Destiny for the first time, which you only get to experience a game for the first time once. And so you are still in that like, and you're also absorbing in 100%. 10 years of things, not even 10 years of things technically, because there's been plenty of things removed from the game that you won't be able to touch. I'm not going to get into that conversation right now. A lot of the problems that, that we have are much longer. Like we've been here for a long time. We've already appreciated a lot of the things that you have already appreciated. And, but you getting to come in with fresh eyes and, say all these things and experience all these things. Like, I'm happy for you, man. This is the kind of stuff that I'm always been super interested in. Again, we don't have a lot of people like you who are like willing to come in, invest a couple weeks of their time to be like, all right, what the hell is this all about? Because all people ever hear about is like, this has got bad press, this is bad press, Destiny get bad press, all this kind of stuff. I mean, my chat has basically just been like, this has been like the most refreshing take on this game in such a long time, because you're coming in and getting to see like all the really awesome parts of the game, stuff like the contest mode, dungeon, and experiencing end game content, and your fascination with like the build crafting, all this kind of stuff. So it's very refreshing to like have someone come in and be like, I don't understand why everybody says this game sucks. Like, it seems pretty good right now. Like,
so I saw that the final shape came out, but I didn't play any of it. I was still just like not touching Destiny at all. I saw some Twitter commentary basically being like, well, Destiny's over. Like, the 10-year story is done, and why would you continue putting time into it, right? Like it's dead on its feet at this point, and it's gonna just fall over at some point, but it's dead. I kind of can believe that, right? So I had a lot of people saying like, Milo, like, you should jump on for the final shape, or you should like, will you ever get into Destiny again? And at the time I was like, hell no. Like, the game is just going to keel over and die. And like, why would I bother? And it's something that in Zombies, it's almost been like a Grim Reaper hanging over my shoulder for the last 5 to 6 years, which is that they reset the story in Zombies in 2019. It was basically a soft reboot of the story between 2019 and 2020. And
I did not even know that Zombies had like an interlinked story between games.
Oh, brother.
I did not even know that. I thought they were all their individual experiences. I had no idea.
I'm basically, for lack of better word, I am the Bife of Zombies.
Okay.
Back in the day, in the origins of Zombies, there was me, there was Radosens 27, there were some smaller creators like Vixaria, there were a slew of different people that were like story obsessives. And we were all Bifes in our own right? Okay. And we loved the story to pieces. It was amazing. And since they did the soft reboot, the story's been much less interesting than it used to be. I'll say that. I don't want to just like poop all over it here, but it's definitely been a change. It's been a big change. And the challenge that I've found over the years since the reboot is there's been very little reason for me to do what I used to do, which is I used to spend all my time, all day long, like transcribing quotes from the characters in the game. Like if I went on like a 12-hour flight, I would spend the entire flight sitting there listening to 4 hours of character quotes that have been ripped from the game files and just transcribing them, looking for like little story clues that might be able to be found in those quotes. Like one quote in 1,000 might be relevant. I used to do that because it felt like it was worth digging for diamonds because diamonds were there. There were cathedrals for eyes to see. Whereas nowadays,
this is some early D1 coping stuff, but I got a story about this, but you keep going.
There is no reason really to spend thousands and thousands of hours on just trying to dig into the story, because the way they tell the story now is for the masses, not for the few. And it used to be for the few, and I used to use my digging for diamonds as the way to help proliferate it to the masses. Whereas nowadays it's like, you are going to be told by a character through a piece of heavy-handed exposition what is happening in the next map at some point in the previous map. Like, it's going to happen time and time and time again.
I see.
And it's really depressing, to be honest. And it means that, like, now, for example, with Bife was like, oh, Milo, you just did this like Destiny story thing. Like, should we do like a zombies one at some point? And I was like, to be honest with you, Bife, I don't think you'd find it that interesting. Like, there's not stuff to unpack there. There isn't the symbolism. There isn't the depth of everything that there is in Destiny right now. And to Destiny's credit, that stuff is there. And so the full circle thing that I'm getting to with all of this is that people told me it was a dead game. People told me it wasn't worth investing time into. And that felt in alignment with what my understanding was of the zombie story. And so I was like, oh, I get it. I get where they're coming from. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and take them at their word. But having got here now, I realize there is so much more that is still worth putting time into, still worth investing into. Like, sure, you might not be investing into Destiny in the way that 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe there were more players then that were like really sort of excited about where that 5 or 6 years were gonna take them. Maybe it's a little bit more uncertain now, but even just the fact alone that I know that I can come back to this game twice a year, play a raid and play a dungeon on contest, and in between, there will be some other bits and pieces, a little smattering of stuff to keep me busy. That's still worth the time investment from my perspective. Like, it's so much fun, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. Like, I don't think they're gonna like stop releasing dungeons or raids or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
They've actually reiterated, you know, a couple times, like, you're still gonna get a new raid, you're still gonna get a new dungeon. Like, they had to come out and be like, yes, we are still doing those things. And I think to me, they've only had one miss in terms of like all the raids experiences, and the dungeons from like the last 3 years, I think have all been majority very, very strong.
What was the Destiny 1 thing that you were going to mention?
Oh, this is like early in Destiny 1 where, you know, we had like some small secrets here and there. Some of, like, most of them were like not announced at all, but people got so infatuated with like looking for secrets in D1. Like one of the last things I remember was people going to a PvP map where there was like just a scrolling set of just random characters, numbers and letters, just going through on a signpost. And people were spending hours upon hours upon hours trying to decipher if this was anything at all.
Oh, hell yeah.
People trying to figure out if like the 7th chest in Vault of Glass, does it exist? Like all this stuff, to the point where Bungie back then had to be like, there's nothing here. And into the future,
they came out and said that?
Because they didn't want people, because there was nothing there. And they didn't want people wasting hours and hours and hours of their life looking for nothing. It got to the point for me where like people would come into my chat and be like, did you see there's maybe like a new secret with this thing? And because I used to, you know, be at the forefront of a lot of those things, or at least maybe not me specifically, but my clan was at the forefront of a lot of things, like, you know, the first time Outbreak Prime came out in D1, we were at the forefront of that. Nice. But it got to the point for me where I was just like, guys, if there is a secret there, I'm going to let someone handle it and I'll tell you what it is later. But it got to the point where everyone thought everything was a secret. This is a secret. Yeah. That's a secret thing. This could be a secret mission. And I was like, I cannot spend dozens and dozens of hours hunting down random trails where Bungie has come out and said that a lot of the time, this is nothing. Like, this patch note, it's nothing. Yeah, that was just us being funny. It's nothing. And then every once in a while, they have something that's actually something. But most of the time, they don't want us to be wasting our time with like,
nothing.
this is just, guys, it's a texture. It's just a fancy texture on the floor. Like it's not anything.
That is,
it's
yeah,
just,
that is hilariously different to zombies. In zombies, it is quite literally the opposite. They want us to be investigating. And honestly, it's where zombies came from, right? The quests in zombies, you go back to the original maps, and it's like, you know, like we might be able to find an example of it in here, although to be honest, Destiny's environment design is so good that we probably can't. But like, I'm just going to look around for a repeated texture somewhere, like somewhere where a texture wraps and it repeats onto itself. Let's see, what would be a good example? Is there one that I can pull out here? Wait, can you see my bullets on the floor? Can you see that? Yeah, so let's say the texture is in a square like that, and it's this like arcing down line, and then let's say that texture is repeated, so the next square here, so it would be arcing down line, and then it would be arcing down line, etc. Right? You follow so far?
Sorta, yeah.
So with those squares that I'm creating, if you had a texture that was sort of mirrored in the middle, you'd be like arcing down line, and then arcing down line like that, kind of like the Aries, you know, the symbol for Aries.
I don't, but I'm picking up what you're putting down. Keep going. Keep spitting.
Sort of like a curvy V, right? Like if it was just sort of mirrored at that middle point.
Yeah, I got you.
And so there's texture mirroring in early zombies maps, and the original zombie storyline theories were like, that is Baphomet. That is the goat devil, and this is Treyarch sneaking satanic worship into Call of Duty World at War. Because it looks like the face of a devil. Like, that is the sort of level of schizophrenia, and I say that with love, but the level of schizophrenia the zombies story started out with, Treyarch basically saw that and went, you know what? They're cooking.
Yeah.
It is Baphomet. You've got to deal with the consequences of the fact that Baphomet's on the wall in this bunker. Like, have fun. And so because of that, it's like, okay, the zombies community might be like, oh, if we use a rocket launcher in this certain area, it leaves behind like this glowing red ball on the floor. What if the glowing red ball is like a ball of energy that can talk to us? What if we can move the ball around and use it to like open a secret door? That was genuinely a massive community theory back on Ascension, the first map that ever had an actual proper Easter egg quest.
Yeah.
And it was that level of like crackpot theorizing, tinfoil hat theorizing. Destiny is actually built on principles of good design. Like, its puzzles are built on those principles.
Yeah.
And I'm not like pooping all over zombies when I say this, but zombies Easter eggs, for the most part, are not built on those same principles. It is very different. I love zombies, but I also love getting into an encounter or getting into a room and being like, I know the devs have logically thought about how I'm going to solve this as just a puzzle that could be in a board game.
Yeah. All right, let's get this one done and at least give some people a change of scenery, and we can yap in a different large environment.
Yep, I'm super down. For approaching this...
Yeah,
okay.
if you want a dungeon lead here, but
yeah.
I'm interested if you have the mechanics down or if you went with your own thing. I'm interested. So jump on in when you want to start. Do you want the YOLO? Are you familiar with the YOLO strat, or do you want to do it more traditional? I don't know what that is.
I've literally only done it with my initial team, so
okay,
I don't know what
so
YOLO is.
I'll
YOLO
show you
just
the
like
YOLO
damage phase
strat.
instantly?
It's an instant damage phase, but not on the right.
So you just ignore all the ad spawns? You let yourself not get stops?
You essentially cram all your knowledge into the left side, and whatever happens on the other three, YOLO.
You don't care.
Deal with it.
Okay, I'm down to try that out. That sounds like that will be
on normal mode. Not really that bad. I don't know if Jin's on Well of Radiance or anything, but if he is on Well of Radiance, it really will not be that bad at all. But it is one of the things that I talked about early on is, you know, if you want to go with a more difficult strategy or interesting strategy, you could do that, but you know the risks involved. All right, we're gonna need 3 over here.
Yep.
As opposed to like if you want to take it slower, you can do that, but it's not as rewarding in terms of speed.
Dude, the fact that the wizards are dying in like 5 shots from my choir is crazy. Like, this is so much easier than contest. It's insane.
All right, so now we're in our damage phase.
Yes, sir. All right, where do you, for YOLO strat, do you stand in a specific spot for damage phase?
If we have a Well of Radiance, which we do, you can stand up here. It's a little bit easier to shoot. If we didn't have a Well of Radiance, we'd probably be sitting in the back a little bit more. And I think the strategy here is mainly like anarchy spam, which I don't think you have.
No, I'm just using a scintillation.
Yeah, oh, that's fine.
It is a remarkably different experience right now. The fact that I can just sort of like roam around, I can use my primary weapon and just randomly shoot stuff. It's like,
Yeah, if you
Totally
do want a
different vibe.
slightly harder experience, I mean, I don't think Master's that much more brutal, but, you know, it is scaled slightly differently.
I'm very glad contest mode exists, because when I
Same.
last played Destiny, there was no contest mode. There was like that was not hadn't been developed yet. So
contest mode, I can tell you why
there.
contest mode kind of came around in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's mainly because players were getting so good at leveling before the raid, no matter how much time there was before, with like maybe one exception. So it just created this place where the only difficulty that we were really getting was figuring out the mechanics, and part of the fun of the day one raid experience is also that combat difficulty, is also the struggle
massively
of trying to figure out how to also survive in this place.
Yep.
So they came up with contest mode to essentially
When was that?
cap. I think it was Crown. It's gonna. It's grinding on the rail. Crown was actually crazy as well because they experimented with a 6-hour window. Normally, like, we've had different ranges of time. We've had 10 days. We've had 2 weeks. We've had 3 days. We've had maybe 7 days. Now they were like, you have 6 hours to level as much as you can.
Wow.
And then the raid starts. And that was a very different experience. But going forward, they cap the raid. So you still need to hit a certain level requirement, but it's generally not that hard to hit. Like this dungeon, for example, was 1995. If you've been somewhat active on the game, you were already
I hit
1995.
it, and I played for a week.
Yeah.
So like, it was fine. Granted, I played a lot of hours in that week, but it was still.
So this was to ensure that teams, you know, didn't have an advantage over one another, because one team maybe had like, you know, they just no-lifed grind their power level and they're equal with the raid. Well, you know, that's not exactly fair to the team who didn't have all the time in the world to grind. They're 10 levels underneath, but you know, if you have a power level advantage, that makes the combat experience easier, which reduces the stress of figuring out mechanics because you're not having to worry about res tokens as much, or you're not worried about dying as much. Last Wish did not have it was not contest enabled, but the leveling process was so rigorous. Like, there were teams that grinded double-digit hours per day every day, and they were still like 20 to 30 levels underneath Riven when they got to the end. That was part of why Last Wish was as difficult as it was because it wasn't that teams couldn't get there, because like you could figure out the mechanics. It was mainly that the power levels were so high that people simply did not have the damage or the survivability to get there. And so like the small handful of teams that did get there were there because they were able to grind out the insane amount of levels that you needed to even have a chance. I'm talking a chance of even getting to the final boss.
In the hypothetical world where your team, rather than just attacking the raid from like hour 0 when it went live, if you had power leveled for another 4 hours to just try and get higher light, do you think you would have got your 24-hour clear?
I don't think so. Like 1 power level or 2 power level difference, I don't think would have made that much. Maybe if we all got like 10 freaking levels or something like that, then sure. But I think also like the raid came out on a Friday, reset was Tuesday, so we had probably already gotten most of the levels that we were going to be able to get. So grinding another 4 hours for 1 level, which is going to give you like maybe a 1% difference, if that, was not going to really contribute anything at all.
Because it was a consideration for this one for us, because none of us had particle reconstruction or deconstruction or reconstruction.
Reconstruction. Everyone, if you just say particle, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Which meant that we couldn't consistently use any linear fusion rifle strats or like anything like that, because they just weren't experiencing their full proper buff, hence Grand Overture. Second took us so long to clear that at one point we were like, should we realistically just go and do like seasonal challenges for like 4 hours, get particle unlocked, and then come back and probably just clear this easy peasy?
Yeah.
Now we decided not to do it in the end, but we thought about it for sure.
I'm going to give you a funny story. That did happen in the first iteration of Crota's End back in D1. So in the before times in D1, leveling worked
before the Fire Nation attacked
very, very differently than it does today. And so Crota's End came out, and we had like a normal mode version where the level scaling was, you know, pretty balanced. Wasn't too bad. But in the before times, Raids, hard mode raids were designed so that you could never outlevel them. For example, the raid was 33, and we were, the highest we could be was 32. I'm actually,
Wait, is that a light level?
This was light level, yeah. But also leveling worked very, very differently back then as well. I'm not going to get into that. Sorry, I think this was actually normal mode. Am I crazy? Was this a normal mode thing or is it a hard mode thing? So either way, level differences way back when, like the difference between being level 29 and being level 30, we're talking like 20 to 30% power, in terms of how much damage you're dealing and how much you're receiving. We got to the point where we're on Crota. We're on the final boss, and we are struggling with the damage. Like, we just don't... The only way to deal damage to the boss was with an item that dropped on the ground. Okay. And... Oh, I'm sorry. 32 was normal. 34 was hard mode. So we're all, like, level 30, and we're struggling. One of my buddies is like, I think I'm pretty close to 31. If I can just go do a couple of activities, I might be able to get a drop that gets me to level 31. And going from 30 to 31 was that significant of a boost that we just sat around, let him get that level that he ended up getting. He took over my role as like the sword person, and we were able to beat it because he was able to get those extra levels. So in the middle of a raid, which is just unheard of nowadays, to be like, I'm gonna leave and get some other stuff done. That did actually happen to us. What, it's got to be 10 years ago now. Over 10 years. Yeah, it was December 2014. My boy Leopard. Shout out Leopard. So
are you, when you say like it's gotten a lot easier, do you feel like there are fewer opportunities for you to be skill checked in this game now than there used to be? Like, did you have the perception back then that it was a harder game, or is it just in hindsight that you realize it's gotten easier, if that makes sense?
It's a little A, little B. Like, the game definitely has gotten easier, but we've also gotten smarter. We've also learned the expectations of Bungie. We've learned, like, here's how they're, like, Bungie loves a good mechanic where someone can see some amount of information and another person can't see that information, and you have to give the information to those people. That is a very recurring theme throughout the 10 years of this game so far. But yeah, the game was harder way back when. Now, there have been, you know, some nerfs to like certain activities and this and that, but the amount of tools we have gotten to be able to conquer some of these challenges is insane compared to where we used to be. Again, like we used to cower in corners in Grandmasters, like in a little group. Like, everyone had to be on, like, a well of radiance.
Everybody hold hands.
Yeah, just, like, everyone stick together. Stay in the well. We don't do anything until we have a well of radiance. And then when it runs out, we'll wait 7 minutes for another well of radiance. And then we'll go back out. Like, people were scared for their lives. And now you look at something like Consecration Titan, even in its state right now, like, it just got a nerf. It's insane. It's insanely strong. It's one of the only builds that Prismatic Titan really has, but it's insane.
The true final boss is that. Karev, nothing, mate. He's easy peasy compared to a Prismatic Titan. You don't want to fight one of those.
Oh yeah, also you like completely full heal as well. So you could be like in the worst position imaginable, but if you have a melee charge, you're just like slide, melee, and I'm back to full as long as I hit something. Every class has some insanely stupid, crazy build that's capable of doing hundreds of thousands of damage to like any target you want. We did not used to have that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
what we used to have when I was playing was you would put on an exotic that would make your giant shield last a few more seconds, and people would cower behind it in fear, and then you would hope that you would get another one in like 5 minutes, and then you could walk up about 50 feet on the hardest difficulty stuff. That's where we used to be.
It is a different game. Like,
it's a way different game.
5 years ago to today, to me, or 6 years ago to today, to me, it's more or less unrecognizable. I'm still shooting my guns, I'm still using exotics, but back then when I thought about Destiny, I just thought about like shooting an ogre in a cave with my primary weapon. Yeah, I was rocking double primary all day long, baby. Whereas now it's like, oh really? Is that
year one of Destiny 2 was double primary mandate. Like, you could not equip, you know, a special weapon in those slots. That was made with Forsaken. But that's why I've literally been calling you a new player, because like you played 6 years ago. It's a completely different game. Yeah, you shoot guns and you throw abilities. Everything else has changed.
Yeah, and even the abilities, I don't recognize any of them. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell is this? A healing grenade? Are you crazy? Like,
yeah, actually a fairly new thing. Healing grenade, fairly new over the history of the game.
So we've reached encounter 3, and I have beef with this encounter. I have beef with it.
I think a few other people do. I'm interested to hearing what your beef is with this.
So I am a new player, as we've established.
Okay.
And even so, I have a decent idea of like Destiny 1 era lore and a little teeny bit of Destiny 2 early lore. My problem with the encounter is not that you can solve it by pattern recognition or by the story route. I actually love the fact that the story is relevant in that way. I think it's awesome. I don't know how many other Destiny encounters there have been, and feel free to not tell me because I guess it's kind of a spoiler, but I don't know how many there have been in the past where the story's actually meaningfully contributed to your likelihood of being able to solve an encounter. Like in zombies, that never happens, more or less. And so as a design thing, sick, like hell yeah. The problem for me is that unlike the second encounter, there are so many things you could do in this encounter that would be wrong that don't meaningfully nudge you with new information to get you towards the correct solution. Like I could write down 50 interpretations of what this room means and what all the different things are in combination, and one of those is correct, but it has no greater reason to be correct than the other 49 things on the list, is what I felt like.
Okay.
Whereas in Encounter 2, the way it works felt absolutely prioritized, so to speak, over those other 49 solutions. And even when I was doing a wrong solution, the feedback I would get would constantly be like, it's actually a little bit closer to something else on the list. Maybe you should take a look over here. This is like, it could easily be random. Like, I'm trying to think back to some of the theories that we had, because I think this encounter total took us about 6 hours to solve, something like that.
To solve or to beat?
To beat. To solve was maybe, I don't know, maybe 3. But bear in mind, I'd been awake for 24 hours. I streamed it all in one go. So I was brain dead at this point.
Can't relate.
You're like mainlining Monster Energy or something. Like,
the joke is that I can. It's happened to me twice. I'm one of few who can relate.
I was starting to shut down a little bit, and I'm just basically very, very lucky, I think, that I did notice the story thing. And we tried igniting the truth first, because basically I was like, hold on. When you enter an activation on the wheel, the symbols actually animate. They animate in a clockwise circle. And so I was like, hold on, if they're animating, maybe there is an order here. I wasn't looking at this as having an order previously, but maybe there is an order. But then it was like, it might be like Guardian Worship, Traveler. But then if you keep reading it in the circle, it would be Guardian Worship, Traveler, Hive, Kill, Pyramid, for example. And it was like, well, that doesn't make a sentence. So we then started trying to sort of workshop the sentence to make sense. Then we were reading the sentence the wrong way round. And like with stuff like that, we were already on the right track. And even then it was like, well, let's just guess the way that the encounter's been designed. Like, let's just guess the orientation of this, rather than it feeling like the design of the encounter speaks that into a prioritized position in my logical assessment of things to make it make sense. And I don't like that. I don't like that about all the aspects of this encounter. Which symbols are lit up first, the various rooms, like it all feels like there's too much randomness to it in you first figuring out the orientation of solution. And then once you've got that, it's like, okay, sure, I know that it's top down on both sides, but I don't want to have to test, okay, is it top down? Is it bottom up? Is it left side first? Is it right side first? Like that doesn't feel like good design to me. But I'm curious if that aligns with your assessment of it or not.
So it's funny, we were kind of far behind, and then when we got to this encounter, our coach, our fourth set of eyes, was like, yeah, so what everyone is doing in this fight is they're punching in some symbols and then nothing's working and then they're wiping and then that's it, and then they start over again. And we were not in here for very long until we like tried something where it was just like, okay, well, we tried one thing and that didn't work, and we knew that there was a bunch of like, you know, telling a true story and the truth speakers and all that. So it's like, okay, well, we just tried like a true statement in the wheel, right? Like Guardian Worship Light. Sure, that sounds true. Fine. We light those up. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Well, what's the other side say? Well, that doesn't seem correct. So what if you have to do, you know, the opposite thing in order to get it started? And then that worked. And that was the extent of our figuring out this place. And I feel like that just might be a we have been playing the game for 10 years diff on you compared to how your experience went, because we are much more accustomed to, you know, how Bungie might do some kind of a mechanic like this. And we also know, like, here are the rules that they abide by, and here's what they like to do, and here's why it wouldn't be this. Like, we are very prone to overthinking. Like, we overthink like crazy historically, like
Yeah.
way overcooked stuff. And in my head, the biggest thing that I've contributed to my team over the past 3 years is remember who has to solve this. Okay? Normal people need to be able to come in here and do this. And if you come up with some insane shit that most people couldn't do, it's probably not that.
Yeah.
When it comes to this dungeon specifically, I think it was just the true false stuff and being like, okay, let's try this, let's try that. So I don't think my gripes are the same in terms of like figuring out. I had different like contest specific gripes with this place, like the boss not really having that much health. Like usually the final boss in
that much health. What?
This guy, dude, we almost 2-cycled this fool. Like we had 4 1% wipes where we were 2-cycling him, and we would have 2-cycled him on our kill, but he walked out of line of sight for like 15 seconds, so we couldn't even shoot him.
Okay, yeah.
So that was our problem. Like we had a problem with his health. Like it wasn't like a health gate challenge, anything like that whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we had more of like a combat discrepancy with this place, being like expecting the boss to be a lot tankier, more difficult to take down, because the boss, I don't know, have you done any Vespers Host?
No, only, don't tell me anything about it. I've done the first 2 encounters blindfolded.
Okay. Oh, so just to get you dropped, so you don't know what's going on.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
So I don't know anything about it, and we'll keep it that way until the very end of the marathon of doing all these raids, because it's like the... Yeah.
So when you do end up doing Salvation, and when you do end up doing Verity, perhaps you'll understand, and I can explain it more after you experience.
Give me 6 months.
It's all relative. It's all relative, basically, to like my prior experiences, and this one was not as much as we were expecting. But we also, you know, again, like one of my teammates is in the chat, like we know that a lot of these things can just come down to trial and error. And sometimes there are just encounters in this place where it's just like, try this. Did it work? Nope. Okay. Try the next thing on the list. Did that work? Nope. Try the next thing on the list. Did that work? Yep. Okay. And that's it. And sometimes it's not as, you know, graciously done as something like the second encounter, where there's all these little nuances and things and pieces that you need to click together. Sometimes it's just like, okay, did that work? No. Okay. How about this thing?
Yeah, it's whittling away at that list of 50 ideas, and one of them will be on the money. Yeah. But it's just whittling.
And then usually after the fact, you'll be like, oh, okay, I see what they were going for here. Oh, I think you'll maybe feel that mostly in Salvation's Edge, but even some other raids, it's just like, wow, that's how it works. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that might have been just a 10-year, we've been playing this for 10 years diff on you.
Yeah, I think it probably is. I think just in terms of puzzles, I think the first encounter was great because everyone knew what was going on in the first encounter pretty fast.
Yeah.
And it was just a question of like, exactly. Like it was fairly straightforward. And that meant that it was just an execution challenge. It was like a race to execute that the fastest, at least in contest. Then the second encounter was like no longer just purely about execution, but you did also need to like prod the machine a bit and get it to prod you back, and then learn from how you were being prodded to be like, okay, cool, we've got this. We've got a machine here that I can learn from. Whereas this encounter, like I think just whittling away, I think that's a pretty good way to put it. And because my data set is so limited, I might be being more harsh on this encounter than I should be being, because the only things I've done other than so I've done this encounter and then the previous 2 encounters in this dungeon. And then the only other sort of puzzly activity that we did this week was Dual Destiny. And I loved Dual Destiny. I had such a good time.
Base. One of the best missions I've ever done. Base.
Genuinely one of the best missions I think has been designed in a game ever. I think, so I solved it all in one go, did it blind with ATP. He was playing dumb the whole time. He did an amazing job. And
ATP is good, dude.
He was so fantastic at playing that part when I was playing with him there. I really was very grateful to him for it. But it was wonderful because the puzzle worked exactly how it felt like it should work. There was never really a moment where I was like, I'm just going to do random stuff and see if a random thing works. And in a puzzle, if you do get to just random things, that's where it becomes a lot less fun for me. It's still enjoyable, but it's less fun. When it pulls you forward through the experience, that is peak puzzle design, in my view.
Yeah.
Dual Destiny does that perfectly. In my view, Encounter 2 does that very well. and this encounter just had much less of that. But
yeah, no, that's
I still
totally
really enjoyed it. I still had a really good time with it. So I have one question for you just before we go in here.
Hit me.
Which is as an established long-term Destiny player, you know basically all there is to know about the game from a community history perspective and from a game history perspective. What the hell does Bungie need to do next to make this game last another 10 years? Because I have my own newbie answers to this question, but for all I know, they might have already done my ideas 7 years ago, and everyone might have hated it. Like, I've got no idea, right? So I'm curious, like, what do they do now?
Here's the thing. That's the $1 billion question. I get asked this like literally all the time. Like, this is like a Twitch chat ask question that you were asking me right now.
My bad.
No, it's fine because it's the first time you've ever asked it. Right? I think it's just more innovating in the play space. I think people have gotten, like, Destiny is a very solved experience. Like, people know how a lot of mechanics work. They know how the seasonal cadence is going to work, right? With this new season, we're going to get this little chunk of story, and then we're going to get this activity that's like very similar to the 20 activities that have come before it. And we're going to get this, and we're going to get this, and with this. For a lot of people, I think part of that wonder has been lost on some people. It's gotten to start to feel like pretty predictable. The gameplay is still like very enjoyable, but I think people are still kind of like wanting to get back to feeling like they're in a new place, and really they want to experience Destiny again for the first time, which is just so incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah.
I think this game will continue to live on purely just on like gameplay mechanics on their own, because again, the shooting's fun, the build crafting's fun, the combat experience is really fun, but Bungie needs to be same but different, but still same.
Right.
And that's so goddamn hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, they need to keep being a shooter. They need to keep being this space wizard shooter while also trying to bring new elements to the game that are not going to alienate these people who play the game, because even though this game is closer to like an MMO than most shooters are, there's still so many people who play this game like it's a traditional first-person shooter campaign type of game. People don't want to be they don't think of this as a grinder game. They don't want to think of it as like a game that you need to invest a lot into. They want to look at it as like something where they can log on for 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes and be able to feel like they accomplished something, as opposed to like a more long-term experience like you would feel in an MMO. So Bungie is trying to contend with those kind of people, but then they're also trying to contend with the people like me who want to treat it more like an MMO type experience. So you have these just like these split audiences that all want different things, and that is just so tough for them to manage. And I am really wondering how they end up pulling it all together in going into the future. You know, if they do something cool with this upcoming set of expansions, a new story they're going to do, are things going to still feel the same? I don't know, but that is the $1 billion question.
Seeing so many flaws that the game has now as a new player as well, of which there are plenty, trying to sort of identify like which of those actually are really that important, which of them are much less important, etc., and just trying to wrap my head around the whole thing. As part of that, I've seen so many people have their own hot take of like, this will solve Destiny, right?
Yeah.
The time investment to actually be raid ready and contest ready or what have you is like a couple weeks. It's a couple weeks before a raid or dungeon comes out. You need not play the entire time. You can take time off. You could go do other things, but you could come back. You could play for 3 weeks, like as a regular player, and you'd be just fine. You'd still have that peak moment twice a year, let's say. So long as that can keep happening, I think from my perspective, it's like, okay, all of the other thinking can go towards figuring out how can we make it so that in those, let's say it's literally one every 6 months. I don't know what the actual cadence is, but let's say it's a raid or dungeon every single 6 months.
I think that's literally what it's going to be.
Okay.
With some
perfect.
stuff kind of in between, like half and half measures. 1
month is covered, and let's say that's 2 weeks before a raid and 2 weeks after a raid. Let's say that's just covered with the raid experience. Filling that 5-month window, from my perspective, is like, okay, well, yes, they could be doing things to make new players have a better time getting into the game, right? But at the same time, does the solution need to be like better PvP? I don't think so. I think that, like, generally you look across the industry, multiplayer shooters are kind of boring. Like, we're seeing the decline of the team deathmatch across the whole industry. That's why battle royales have been such a big thing in the last 5 years. Do we need a story that's like absolutely crazy? Well, I think we've seen some really strong stories recently. Like I think the Final Shape is a really strong story. I don't know if it's the best one ever. I haven't played Witch Queen yet. I've heard that that's also very, very good. The Final Shape was very enjoyable, but is that realistically going to be something that they release like twice a year just to fill a 5-month gap? Like, no, I don't think so.
No.
So in my view, it's like, I suspect what needs to happen is almost an expectations shift where people recognize that they will tap into Destiny when there's juicy stuff there right in front of them. But then if you try, like if you do every single daily quest that you get and every single weekly quest that you get, and you try to play it 24/7 over the course of the year, I then do think it's going to be an impossible task to keep you entertained because like it's finite. Ultimately, it's a finite thing. But like, that seems fine to me. Like in Zombies, we have new map releases, and then we have very big dead periods where nothing happens, and there's no changes to the game, and there's no story, and it's just like, you're just waiting. So you might get a map, and then it's like, okay, a couple months of nothing, and then it's a map, and then nothing. And then there's certain years where there's nothing at all. There's no zombies whatsoever. And so what Zombies people tend to do is we just dump hours in when it's new, and then we all just go do other stuff. That's pretty much the Zombies flow. And I kind of wonder if Destiny just needs to be like more at peace with that.
I don't think what you're saying is wrong. People do. I literally have a video where the thumbnail is just a picture of me and some text on it that just says, "Please take a break." That's it. That's all. I think it would
solve a lot of people's problems because, like, the reason I say it is that we have a similar thing in Zombies where people want to play Zombies all the time. But realistically, we get 5 maps a year, maybe 6, maybe 7 if we're incredibly lucky. And those maps last, in terms of hype, a couple weeks. It's like maybe a week or 2 of build up and a week or 2 of playing it. And it's very easy from like a content creator's perspective to be like, content drought, it's game's dead, season's boring, nothing's going on. Like, and when the studio doesn't recognize that it's like a season light on content for Zombies players, then obviously I'm going to be like, okay, do they think that we are happy with this offering? If they do, that's a problem. So I'll be vocal about it. But if they're doing what it sounds like Bungie's doing and they're being like, actually guys, this is going to be a season light on content for you. You are welcome to tap out for a little bit. And then like the next season after that is going to be crazy. That is at least them acting in good faith and treating you with some respect, right? Which I think you guys should not take for granted because lots of game studios do not do that.
Yeah.
So I've noticed a lot this week, just a lot of people being like, I want to play the game all the time, but there's nothing to do, and I'm out of stuff to do, and like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I get it, but there is a solution to just come back in 6 months. As much as that's weird,
yeah,
it is a solution there. I think that would solve a lot of people's gripes with the game because when you play it, I mean, I took a break for 6 years, right?
Yeah.
That's a bit too long to take a break. But it's a night and day. It's a new game in that time period. If you just did every 6 months and you gave yourself 3 weeks of Destiny every 6 months, you'd think this game is a 10 out of 10, hands down. There's nothing better than it on the planet. Because in that 3-week window, you would have so much cool new stuff to do over and over and over again. I was saying this on stream the other day. I think that everyone in Destiny, if you like raids specifically, I'm not going to say that you're going to love Call of Duty Zombies Easter eggs, but I think you would at least get something from that experience. It's not going to be the same as a raid, but it's going to be some vibe of completing an endgame activity over the course of a couple of hours. It's got different rules to it. It works in a different sense, but it's still endgame activity that you can complete with your team.
Yeah.
And many of them end in a final boss. And so like, you guys could grind out Destiny for a month, and then you could be like, you know what? I'm going to go and just crack on with like 1 Zombies Easter egg a month, and you would have Zombies Easter eggs to last you for the next 3 years. There's like 50 maps at this point, and they're all playable also, that none of them have been sunset. So like, I think many of the gripes that I've seen of the Destiny community are just an artifact of people having played the game so much.
It literally is. It literally, like, I mean, you look at someone like myself, I have like, I don't know, 97% of the triumphs, and I have like all of the seals and all of the titles and all of this and every exotic and blah, blah, blah. I beat the game, right? It's right. Like, I want to be justified in saying like, man, there's not like that much for me to do. But it's like, I've beaten the goddamn game, man. I got all the titles.
Yeah.
I got all the exotics. I got this. I got all this.
10,000 hours in to be like, there's no content.
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and it's those moments where you have to like take a step back and be like, dude, they're not going to be able to sustain you in this way forever. I used to tell people, I still tell people, one of the best ways to play this game is to come back for the yearly expansion, enjoy it, f off, come back the season before the next expansion. Like, you play Witch Queen, and I enjoyed Witch Queen. Okay, great. You come back 2 months before Lightfall. You got season 16, 17, 18, 19 to all play in a row. No time gates, no nothing. You can play it at your own pace. Everything is available for you immediately. And so you get to binge all the stuff you want. You don't have to wait. And then you're let in right to the next expansion, where Bungie usually does some sort of a catch-up mechanic or event where it's like, hey, did you miss out on some things during the year? Well, here's an easy way to go get them, you know, through blah, 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 whatever it is. This is episode 3. This is the final episode before we have the Apollo expansion, codename Apollo expansion, whatever it ends up being called.
That sounds like such a good model that you've just suggested of like, you get the tail end of the last one with all that stuff being present and me being able to just dig into all of it and then roll into the next major expansion. That sounds so good. And then in the meantime, you guys can just play other video games.
The only, I've seen a couple people mention this in the chat. The only issue is that like these episodes do come with season passes where, you know, it's same thing, you know, your battle pass, whatever, and it's filled with a bunch of different rewards and weapons and notably cosmetics. And there's some people like, oh, well, then you miss out on the battle pass rewards because, you know, an episode is what, $10 to $12. And the amount of cosmetics that they put in there is like way more than $10 to $12 if you were to buy them from, you know, the actual in-game store. So there's some people kind of, you know, annoyed about that. But if you really care that much about getting that armor, I think you would just play the game so that you could get the armor. But if that's really the only thing you're living for, then maybe I think you need to reevaluate why you're playing the game in the first place. That's a whole different conversation. So what you're saying is not inaccurate at all. It has been preached by quite a few amount of people, including Bungie themselves, where it's like people just want this to be their game and they wish they had more reasons to continue to play their game and not having those reasons. And that's really all it comes down to.
Which is fair. I respect it. On that note, should we kill this chunky man?
Let's get it. Exotic's actually dropping now, so maybe you get the exotic.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but also that people don't want to play the game. Yeah. They want a reason to play the game, but they also at the same time don't want to play the game. That's a whole other conversation. We could talk about another time.
Oh, well, okay. Before we jump, just real quick then.
Okay.
Why do people like crafting?
Because it means
it means they don't have to play the game.
Yes, kind of based, but also it is a more direct route towards getting the thing that they are looking for. Trust, I've had so many goddamn conversations about this topic, and it is I'm exhausted by it now. I think it was initially meant to be a meet us halfway point where you know, if like slowly over time, let's say you're unlucky and you're not getting the drops that you're really looking for, you're really looking for this perk combo and it's just not happening. But if you played enough, you would eventually be able to get the pattern for the weapon and you would be able to make the thing that you're looking for. So you've invested a lot of time into trying to get the pattern, and so it's meant to be this halfway point. So you played a lot, we're going to give you the pattern so you can make the thing that you actually want. Cool.
So I don't know what you guys call them. It's like weighted rolls or something for exotics. Is that like if you're doing, it used to be everyone would farm this one raid encounter. I don't remember what it was, but like there was this meme at one point of like people would be farming this one encounter for this one exotic. Some people had like 100 clears and they never got the weapon. And it was like, maybe it was 1K or something like that. I don't know.
Scourge of the Past, Anarchy, I think.
Okay, yeah, quite possibly. So with something like that, I feel like in my understanding of it is that in the modern day now, there's a mechanic in the game where it knows how many times you've cleared it and your chances get better each time. Is that accurate or is that wrong?
That is, I believe, accurate. And there are also triumphs that you can do that will also increase the drop rate of an exotic. So if you, the more things you do in the dungeon or the raid or like whatever, the higher your chance is. There is still some kind of an issue. Like, it's very fringe cases that people go like 40, 50, 60 clears anymore without seeing the exotic. But I thought a simple solution would just be, if you have the seal, if you have like the title for that particular raid, you should just automatically get the exotic, because to me, getting the exotic is some sort of like a showcase of mastery. And if you can show that you have mastered this piece of content, whatever it might be, you should get the ultimate reward that is attached to that piece of content. Why they haven't done it, I don't really know.
I have 3 comments on this, and then we can jump into the encounter, because I know that crafting could be a debate that lasts a while. Number one is
forever on it.
I'll spare you from having to. So number one is zombies actually incidentally has a similar problem in that its rewards from its endgame activities, which we call Easter eggs, historically have been really poor. There's basically been no reward, and nowadays it's a bit better and we're getting some rewards, but there's also now a mode in the game which handholds you through the Easter egg. So imagine a raid, but it tells you how to solve the puzzle, and it's like on the UI, it tells you how to do it. Okay. At every step of it as well.
Honestly,
and
I don't know if I would hate that for Destiny, for like.
Oh, I think
for
it's
like for
so
casuals.
anti-Destiny.
Really?
But I think Destiny to me. Okay. I don't think Destiny's problem is this is another conversation, but I think it's worth getting into. I don't think Destiny's problem for casuals is that they don't know how to do raid encounters. I think that the first problems that casuals will hit in this game are gonna be hit way before it's a question of whether or not they can solve a raid puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
And in zombies, that's actually less the case, because in zombies, the issue is that the casuals don't even know that the puzzle is there. There is no indicator. There is no pointer. There is no, hey, go solve this. There is nothing even in the game with NPCs to be like, hey, there's a puzzle. It's random a lot of the time. Like, some Easter eggs, you have to do stuff that is so arbitrary, you could play the map for 1,000 hours and never even know the Easter egg is there.
Right.
And so the guided mode is like the solution to at least even illuminate to people that content exists. Whereas the content discovery is just not a problem in Destiny, because everyone knows you can queue into a raid. You can't queue into an Easter egg. There is no queuing in. It's just playing the map, right?
You can queue into a guided games raid, but you cannot just random matchmake a raid with people.
But what I mean is, like, the raid is in the menu. It is a thing that says raid.
Yeah, you can physically click a button that says this is the raid.
Yes,
enter.
And you know that, like, okay, I'm loading up a certain type of activity. Whereas in zombies, you only have the map. So you're just choosing the map, and if you choose to do the Easter egg or not, that's an in-game decision.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just don't know that they're there in the first place. So that's why guided mode makes some more sense, I think, in zombies. But in Destiny,
I know.
For you to be able to load into a puzzle and then have somebody else do the puzzle for you, and that somebody else is the puzzle itself, is the computer, that to me is anti the whole ethos of why they've designed the game in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't want an auto-solving puzzle that on my desk plugs its own pieces together, and then I've got a puzzle at the end and I get an exotic or whatever from that. That to me would be very anti-Destiny.
Now let me hit you with the counterpoint.
Please do.
Do you think it is better to have people never experience this thing ever, or at least get to experience it one time, even if it's the computer doing it?
Genuinely, I think Destiny dies if it's the computer doing it.
Interesting.
I think it is valuable in games to have content present in the games that not everybody experiences. And I think in the context of crafting,
I can agree with that.
I think it's worthwhile having a random roll on a gun or something, or whatever it might be, that is really hard to get. It's really rare. It's the like classic, there's like 1 of 5 Diablo items of a certain kind that drop, and that's it, like on the planet, right? It's the same conversation there. But I think it's good, as much as it can be frustrating for the people that don't have the thing, I think it's good for there to be stuff that is so rare that not everybody gets to experience it. And so, in line with that same kind of thinking, should we be in a world where every single player that plays Destiny has completed a raid? I actually think the answer is no. And I think the answer needs to be no, because it means then, and this is a huge problem in zombies, so I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. It needs to be no, because it means that the design space collapses to completely focus on ensuring that every single person can get through it. And that design space is not fun. It is bland, it is homogenous, and it is uninteresting. What we've seen in zombies over the years is that historically the Easter eggs were these arcane, very weird, arguably poorly designed puzzles with lots of randomness, and like less than 1% of the player base completed the Easter eggs in a given map. Genuinely less than 1%. I mean, less than 1% would even try. Like, less than 1% even knew it was there, right? Now, it's a big push for Treyarch in Black Ops 6 and just generally in modern zombies to try and bring in all of the whole player base to do Easter eggs. Like, that's why this guided mode exists. And at its face, I get it. At its face, the Treyarch design team are spending months and months and months designing this massive piece of content. They want as many people to experience that piece of content as possible.
Yep.
But a problem that I think that they have started to run into this year is that by doing that, there can never ever be a step which requires a level of skill expression, both in either the puzzle design sphere or the gameplay mechanics application sphere, like skill checks, that sort of thing. There can never be something like that that is unattainable until you reach that skill check. Because if it's unattainable till you reach the skill check, the computer can't tell you how to do it. The computer can't say play better. The computer can't say just figure it out, bro. And so it means that that design space goes from infinite possibility of whatever the designers think would be a cool puzzle to suddenly being, okay, well, it needs to be couched in this world where if you're less good at the game, you still do need to be able to get through it. And you start cutting off the heads of all of your prize horses. And I will die on that hill massively. I think that...
So elitist, the elitist Datto in me is like, this dude's spitting right now, brother. You're spitting, man. But I think we potentially come from two different backgrounds where something like that for you is a much harder stance that you would want to take compared to my experience in something like Destiny, where like you said, like people know that raids exist. People know that dungeons exist. They're not, they're not this very obtuse hidden thing. Like you can go find it in the menu. And we've had a lot of problems in the game where people don't necessarily get to experience raid content, or they don't get to experience dungeon content or experience this, experience that, whatever. And so the idea... Is that
because it's too hard? Like, what's the core issue? Just quickly, what's the issue there?
For the average person, I think they are just not used to doing mechanics in their first-person shooter, right? Like, your average first-person shooter campaign, they're not doing all this, like, read the wheel and tell me the truth and tell me the lie and... They're not doing that. They're putting a battery into a slot, and the game tells you to hold E on it, right?
Yep.
So that's one thing. Another thing is that it takes 6 people, and a lot of people don't want to group up with other people, or they don't have the time or something like that. So I do think there is some kind of a middle ground that I, at least recently, have been preaching for this game, where you can have, like World of Warcraft, for example, has an LFG difficulty. It is designed to be a much simpler experience. The loot quality isn't as good, but it's designed to be an experience that at least lets people be in the environment and see the environment and get to experience this piece of content, even if it's not ball-crushingly difficult. Because there's a difficulty mode if you want to crush your balls, right? Destiny has a couple of modes. It has normal mode, it has master mode. But if Bungie wanted to introduce an LFG mode, as long as they didn't water down the raid specifically for this LFG mode, as long as they continued to make the content as they make the content today, and they just simply took the LFG mode and brought it down, maybe you don't get as many weapon drops or the weapon quality isn't as good. There's some sort of distinction between the different difficulties. Something like that, I think in this game in particular, would be welcome. Almost like a match-made raid, because there's been a lot of conversation about should there be matchmaking for raids, and I've vehemently been no, because if, like you said, if Bungie introduces match-made raids, then they need to make raids that everyone can complete in a match-made setting, and that would dilute the experience and make it and that would not be good for the people who really do enjoy the raids. So I think there is a middle ground that people can reach.
Would you take this trade?
Sure.
If you had your LFG difficulty, would you take the trade of getting half the content that you're currently getting each year? As in, we go from a 6-month cadence to a 12-month cadence. I know that's an extreme example, but I'm just curious. Would you take that trade if that was what was on the table? That was the table stakes.
No, I would not.
Okay, because my fear, and I know this from the zombies side of things has definitely been the case, is that when you start adding in those sorts of layers, the amount of ballooning that does to the dev timeline on these sorts of things is it's a new piece of content.
Yeah,
it's a new raid, right? For
sure.
It would be a huge undertaking, and so that would slow down the cadence of endgame content that you'd be getting. It wouldn't be 6 months of extra time, but it would be some meaningful amount of time. And I would always argue that the extra time there would not be worth the casuals that would be brought into it, because if the casuals feel like the overall endgame experience is not attractive in the first place because stuff only happens once every 9 months instead of once every 6, they're not going to bother in the casual mode either. They're just going to bounce because they're going to be like, the game's dead. So that's one thing I would say on that point. Another is that when it comes to the casuals doing the LFG playlist or whatever to matchmake, right? In that scenario, in my view, one of game developers' most important jobs when designing a game is to stop the player doing things that the player thinks they want to do, but that actually would not be fun. An example of this that I can pull from Destiny history, one of the few moments of Destiny history that I can reference here, is the old loot cave back on Destiny 1.
Yeah.
Where, for context, for those of you in chat that weren't born at the time, in Destiny 1, there was a cave which you could go to that would infinitely respawn enemies, and you could just farm enemies in there, and they would drop engrams, and you could take them to the Cryptarch, and you could just basically power farm super fast, like crazy fast. It was an important thing to patch out of the game, not because it was like, oh, players are having a good time and we can't have them having a good time. The problem really was that it was meaning that players thought that they were enjoying themselves, but they were kneecapping themselves and preventing themselves from being able to experience all of the other content in the game because they would just power level past all of the fun grind. They would power level past all the fun missions you could do, and you would just end up basically having completed it, mate, because you stood in a cave for 12 hours instead of you playing a fun story and having an equivalent time investment, but a much better time with the actual art piece that they created, right? With that context in mind, anytime you are putting something in front of a player, like a matchmaking playlist, and saying, go forth, run free, do this, you have to assume that they're going to take the easiest path to completion and the most brainless path to completion and the one that is realistically most likely also going to be the least fun. And my fear with a matchmaking playlist is that you would have people that, because that playlist would exist, they would matchmake into the raid. They would then A, not pull their weight. B, it would be, they wouldn't need to try and find 5 teammates to do it with. C, they would just generally be less invested in it in the first place. D, they would put it on less of a pedestal. And I think all those A, B, C, and D are important to raids feeling as good as they do. And I think that if I queued into a raid the first time in Vault of Glass, and I had to spend 0 time, like back in the day, Destiny 1, and I had to spend 0 time thinking about who I was going to play with, what time we were going to get online. I was playing with like these random Germans that I met on the moon in Destiny 1, and I was like, I need raid teammates, and they were like, yeah, we got you. Had I not needed to do any of that, I would have walked into Vault of Glass being like, it's just another mission, bro. I don't care that there's more people here. The game just filled those slots for me. I didn't put any thought into it. And the grandeur would be minimized. So that is where I'm like, if that sort of stuff starts happening in the game, there might as well not be other teammates in it in the first place. They might as well be NPCs because you are having to put no work in. And ultimately, your own work and your own investment is gonna be why you like the thing at the end of the day.
This dude's gonna hate Destiny Rising, bro. Don't play Destiny Rising.
What is that? I've never heard of that.
Destiny Rising is a Destiny mobile gacha game that NetEase is making in...
Wait, what? That's a thing?
Yeah. Bungie's not making it. NetEase is, but they have provided like a lot of assets and guidance on like what to do. And here's the thing is like, it's actually not that bad of a game, but that's another topic for another day. Again, elitist Datto in me is like, he's spitting, he's so true. Any truers? Yeah. I think I've personally just like loosened up with time. About that philosophy because I bring up an example here. Root of Nightmares. It's the one raid where I'm like, L, kind of easy, kind of boring, mechanics kind of lame, final boss kind of a pussy, who cares, whatever. Salvation's Edge. Yes, this is the greatest raid ever. It's crushing my dick. Yes, I freaking love this, bro. Root of Nightmares, as much as I hated it, it did at least get people into the environment of a raid setting. And my vision, the main reason I started doing a lot of Destiny content was so that I could get to my first raid, because my ass was watching World of Warcraft raid guides all the time.
Yep.
And I was like, man, I want to be that. I want to be that for Destiny. So for me, being a creator has always been about, I want to get as many people into this piece of content as I humanly can, because I think they're some of the greatest pieces of content that have like ever been made ever in like anything. So Root of Nightmares, because it's so pathetic, has opened up the world to people who would have never normally rated in the first place. Whereas Salvation's Edge is more, it's like a love letter to the hardcore gamers out there, and like, we're gonna crush your dick, and this place is gonna destroy you, and you're gonna love it. But the average person's not running Salvation's Edge because it has that barrier. So even though I hate something like Root of Nightmares for myself, I can appreciate that it brought people into a world that I love. And I hope that it would influence them to be like, I want more. I want more of this experience in my life. And that's what my hope would be with some sort of like an LFG type difficulty for Destiny, where people at least get to experience the world that I love so much. It like gets them motivated, like, wow, this is so different compared to the rest of the game. This is so crazy. Like, look at these insanely huge environments, and look at my wife waiting for me to go downstairs real quick to let her open so I could open the garage. That to me is like why I would advocate for something like that. Whereas your world, again, like we just grew up in different worlds, man. We grew up in different worlds. I think we're on the same page, but for me personally, okay, Brim, you're digging, buddy. You're digging. I advocate for something like that because the more people I can bring into the thing that is my favorite, and the more people get to experience that, the more I think their experience on this game will improve. Which means they're gonna watch my guides, and your boy's getting some YouTube money, baby. I'll be right back.
Let's go! I think the last thing I'll say on this point is Zombies has its own Root of Nightmares, and its name is Liberty Falls. It is a map that came out. There were 2 maps that came out at the... Oh, he left? Oh, wait. I thought that the having to open the garage thing was a... I thought that he was memeing. I didn't really... Okay, tell me when he's back. Can you imagine? I'm just here yapping about zombies.
Well, the thing that you mentioned about that is I'm currently wearing the Astro A50s, which are a wireless headset that have great range in my house, so I can hear everything you're saying. Logi.gg/Datto.
Let's go. So, Liberty is very easy. The speedrun for the Easter egg is at like 8 minutes. And that's, imagine being able to do a whole raid in 8 minutes. Like, that would be pretty crazy, right? Yeah. So,
I mean, some people do it. Speedrunners.
I gotta check out those speedruns. Goddamn.
Yeah.
So like it's very simplified compared to a regular Easter egg. It's very straightforward. And Treyarch put out some numbers, which were really interesting numbers. And Liberty Falls, out of the first 3 Black Ops 6 Zombies maps, that map has the most playtime on it. What a surprise. It's the one that the casuals can play, and they do be playing it. Simultaneously, it's also got a higher Easter egg completion rate than we've historically seen in other previous Zombies games. That, like I said, the completion rate might be like less than 1%, whereas thanks to maps like Liberty Falls, we're pushing above, like, I don't know, it's like 6, 7, 8% now for people having completed an Easter egg in Black Ops 6. So that is our version of RON. And I think that the final distinction here that I think is key to make sure of is that, in my view, a map being a simple map to bring people into the experience, double thumbs up. I think that is actually really good. I think having a RON and having a Salvation on the other end of the spectrum that's fantastic, right? You give people a path from easy raids to hard raids. Hell yeah. It's just a risk, and I think it's a really systemic risk of scenarios where it's not the map or the raid that is having that new difficulty modifier applied to, but it's actually raid philosophy. It's how do we make every single one of these raids be something that can go in the LFG playlist and people can find accessible. And I think what that means is that you're telling yourself from a philosophical perspective, from a game dev, like for the game devs, is we need everything we do to be consumable by every single player. And I think that just leads to less interesting experiences. That's like
I can totally agree with
the distinction,
that.
I guess. I would
totally
make.
agree with that. Yeah. No.
Okay.
I definitely
We found
agree.
some common ground.
Yeah. No, I think we do have ultimately a lot of common ground.
I think so. Yeah.
With how we think some of these experiences should be built. Because I'm with you. I would not want Bungie to water down the raid experiences when they've had like a 95% hit rate. I wouldn't want them to water it down so that LFG players could get through. And I think because they haven't succumbed to that and they've stayed consistent for so long, that is what has made the raid experience in this game so consistently good, raid over raid, year over year. And I wouldn't want them to reduce the quality,
like jeopardize that.
For just so they get a few more heads into the raid. Now, do I think they could be doing more to maybe push people in that direction? Yeah, sure, but I wouldn't want them to break the integrity of what they have built, because what they make is so good. And I'm with you in that, like, I wouldn't want it to be dumbed down. I think we just have like different hopes about how those experiences might go for our respective communities.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I think ultimately what we can confidently say is Destiny does have some absolutely incredible endgame content. Yeah, in a world where everyone that played the game could experience that endgame content, hell yeah, brother, that'd be sick. But we know that that's not realistic. And so it's like, okay, what is the next best thing? And it's just about figuring out that, right?
Yeah. No, not everything is designed for everyone.
Yes. And in my view, long may that continue. But also, I get that sometimes you got to just bend the knee a little bit.
Hey, praise the traveler.
Praise the traveler. On that note, there is one wrinkle to this fight that I would like to do just to sort of see how it goes.
Sure.
We're trying to figure out the best place to stand when we were solving this blind.
Sure.
We tried a few different areas. I would like to try all of us being on top of this door.
Okay.
I just want to test it out. Basically, I think that there is a world where the boss ignores you up here. Or doesn't fully ignore you, but like mostly ignores you. And I can well, and Jin can well, and we'll have a lovely time. But this either is going to be a cook, or this is going to be a very, very dumb idea.
This is already looking for cheese spots, bro.
Dude, I'm natural born Destiny.
It's like nothing is rubbed off. Shame. VOD watchers, welcome back.
You mean to say that people have not been listening to the yap? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Witch Queen, stop darkness.
Okay,
stop is downstairs. Drink is over here.
Witch Queen, I think is up here. Maybe nope, that's Hive. Where is Witch Queen?
It's in the right side room on the. When you make a left, it's on the right side corner wall.
Watch out for the little unemployed guys.
I hope my employment bit has expanded to the outside world.
Wait, is that why I'm calling them the unemployed guys? I just know that that's their name.
I've been calling unwritten empowerment unwritten employment.
Yes.
So I look for the guys and I'm just like, okay, I need employment, need a job.
Wait, the oh, hold on. Okay, no, I'm talking about the little wriggly worms.
Oh, you're talking about threadlings.
Yeah, they are the jobless. That is what I thought they were.
Oh, I see. Oh, I need
that's unemployment as far as I'm concerned. These little guys. All right, pyramid is off. Once you're back, I'll activate. Up by the.
I'm in position.
Okay, up on the thing, yeah.
Well, not yet.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, okay, you go. You flip the switch and you go up there and you tell me what happens.
Okay. No, you have to come up or it won't work.
No, just go up.
Okay. See, I'm chilling.
The shadow does cast there. Okay.
Yeah. See, dude, I'm telling you, it's the spot. All right, I'll well. I got first well. I'm just gonna do it early in case he.
Yeah, you can go now.
Yeah, perfect. Is this the spot, chat? The question basically is, can he pull us down? And if he can't, then this is
he's not doing it.
Part. See, I wouldn't call that a cheese spot. It was just a handy place to stand.
I just want you to know that I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yep. Okay. All right. Listen, I just feel like it's part of my journey as a Destiny player to start just experimenting with my placement, you know?
I
just
mean,
a little bit. A healthy amount.
Well, all I'm going to say is that we're going to have to take... there will be a peer review. There will be a performance review of your elitism membership.
Okay. It's been called into question here. Yep. Understood. Oh, I see. Unwritten employment. You're so right.
Yeah. Huh. You know, your boy trying to be doing comedy things.
That's your, like, stand up, your first bit that you get into is like, so I was playing Destiny the other week, right? And there's these little ads. I don't know why you're from Boston apparently now or something.
I mean, I'm from New York, so I can give you a New York accent.
Oh,
I'm just saying
yeah,
it would kill on the Destiny comedy circuit, but have you ever done stand-up IRL? Because I have, and it's horrifying.
Wait, you have?
When I was a young lad in
Oh, damn.
Los Angeles, and I was watching a shitload of stand-up comedy, I kept a book of all my freaking jokes. One might call it a joke book, and I did.
Wow.
I did 3 minutes of stand-up comedy at an open mic,
Yep.
which was horrifying, and they liked me, and I came back, and they had me do 8 minutes for
Oh.
like a small room of about 4 people, also equally horrifying, and I never went back.
Yep. Fair. You know, you got your 8 minutes. You got your ads in there for the mid rolls, and
Yeah. Oh, this was.
you did what you
I mean,
came to do.
they did not have that rule yet. This is 2012.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is
Early
over
days.
a decade ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's. Shout out to anyone who actually does that.
Yeah, I could.
All right, you ready, Mr.
I've never done
Cheeselord?
any kind. Is Savathun off still?
Oh, do we? Oh, okay. I didn't go over there.
Where is that right room? I always
It's
forget
in that room.
Do you think contest mode should be an enableable toggle at all times, or do you think it should be limited to contest weekend?
I'm 50-50.
Okay.
I enjoy the contest mode experience so much that I wish it's another one of those things where I'm like, if people could play it and see its freaking glory in the challenge department of it, maybe they'll want to like do more in the future. And having it accessible in the way, maybe not exactly in the same way as it was truly on day one, because you still need to figure out a lot of stuff and all that, but being able to, let those people have that experience if they want it, to me, I think would be kind of cool. But I could also see the other side where it's like the contest mode is like, it's such a special sacred day in Destiny world, and like to have it available all the time, could maybe like, again, dilute some of the experience. Yeah, what do we do about this one, Mr. Cheeselord?
We just
get over here.
embrace it. There you go.
Just burn my
There
whole
you
super
go.
on that.
On the wall.
So I'm 50-50. I'm definitely more in favor of allowing contest mode to be around more often.
Okay.
It's mainly the glory of the contest mode. It's mainly the glory of like getting to experience this super cool thing in my favorite game and all that kind of stuff.
I basically think that there is just no chance that realistically normal players who are not good enough for contest are gonna like magically become the kind of person that will persevere through not beating a skill check and learn to love contest. Like, and that is a challenge that like I don't know how Bungie could solve that, if it's even possible to be solved. Like, is there any game on the planet that has taken people that want to brain AFK and have no real sort of interest in like being challenged and turned them into people that want to grind like raid-like activities? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But with contest specifically, it's like, if it was available all the time, would those people ever turn it on? I think probably not.
I would say it's very unlikely, but I don't think the goal would be like, mass adoption of like people trying to do contest mode, but just for those people who did want to, just like those few people that are like, you know what, hey, we've been getting better at the game, we've been grinding, all that kind of stuff. Let's see, let's try it. Let's do a little warm up, even though we know the strats and we know the rules and all this kind of stuff, right? Let's see if we have what it takes to get in there, and then maybe that will encourage them to participate in the next one on the day one. Wow, I got cooked. Experience.
Do you think that the main reason to make it available all year round would be for people that don't get to experience it day one? Because I'm like,
kind of.
In terms of replaying it, I'm kind of less interested if it's normal mode. Like, contest mode was a really fun challenge. Outside of that, without that challenge, I'm kind of less excited about replaying raids.
I mean, you always have the master option. You always have the master option, which
Fair.
I will say again is like not that much harder than normal mode, but the challenge is there if you want like a slight bump.
Does that give you the wipes timer that you get from...
It does not. No, it does not give you
okay.
the exact same contest rules.
It's just harder because there's champions. That's like the main difference.
It's harder because of champions. It's harder because enemies just hit harder. They're tankier. You know,
Okay.
they're more lethal.
So it's a decent... You got a decent...
It's a small bump.
Yeah,
it's a small bump.
Yeah.
But I do think there is an appreciation for normal mode because, you know, once you do the contest, it's like, cool, I did the contest, all right. But some people just trying to go out here, farm some guns, have a good time with their buds, and I can respect that angle. Oh no, Give is downstairs and then Traveler's over here. But yeah, part of me like wishes there was that like ball crusher mode for you know, the whole year round, even though for a lot of people something like GM or even a master piece of content is the ball crusher mode.
Yeah, I think it's another one for me where it's like, because I'm coming in late now and I'm looking back at, so there's 19, I think, raids and dungeons in Destiny currently, which is amazing because it means that I get to go back and do all of these blind for the first time ever, which is like super exciting.
That's a lot of stuff for you to do.
The prospect of it being on normal mode makes it so much less exciting than it would have been if I could turn on contest and be like, this is what it was like. And so for me, it's like, it's not even like a getting casuals into it kind of vibe, but it's more so a me reliving the experience that you guys have had kind of perspective.
Yeah.
It's like you're already sunsetting the base game content. Now you're sunsetting the raid experience in a way, and that makes me sad. I kind of wish that, and that's why when we're gonna do all the blind raids, the plan currently is
Spicy.
The plan currently is to try and get under light as much as possible, and to probably run with blue guns.
Okay.
Because I want it to be, I don't want to like two-phase a boss that's meant to be a three-phase. Like that would suck. I want it to be as authentically difficult as possible, and I feel like that's the only way we can do it is this sort of janky simulation by blue gunning it up.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is an issue not yet particularly solved in this game. For but the amount of people who actually want to do. Yeah, okay.
Where is he going?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm going out there.
What the hell, dude? Yeah, there you go. That'll do it. Yeah.
The amount of people like you who are just like, yes, I would like to get my balls crushed. That would be sick. Is like, for every one of you, there's like 10,000 people that are like, is there like a below normal mode that I could do?
Yeah.
So you are one of few, unfortunately, in that world. But I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I am with you.
Just crush my balls, Bungie. Just do it. Just let me do it of my own volition.
I'm with you.
You know what I mean?
I'm with you. And I mean, Bungie has addressed that.
Okay.
With Frontiers, it does seem like they are trying to move towards more of a system where you get to choose how much you want to get your balls crushed. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And they haven't. I don't think they've expanded too much on that system yet. Like, I think it's still very like, yeah, we'll talk about it sometime in the near future or whatever, but it seems like that's a direction they're potentially going in. But I don't think we have sorry, so like it's called all the expansions and stuff coming up is called Codename Frontiers, but because we don't have an actual name, everyone's just been calling it Frontiers, which is like the next era of the game. And then anything that you've heard called Apollo is also a code name for the first expansion of this new era of the game.
So Apollo is within Frontiers.
Yes.
Nested. Okay. Yeah. I'm with you. So
and they're
Frontiers
just all
is like,
they're all code names, right? Like no one knows what they're actually called.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. So in Frontiers generally, which will be like the next couple of years of Destiny, it sounds like.
I mean, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. Nobody knows.
Right. Okay. Like, yeah, the next phase that is the difficulty modification is something they're going to play with. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
Supposedly. Yeah. We'll see.
I'm unsure now that the mission has ended. Should we? Has the Yap sesh come to an end? I feel like it.
I think so.
Maybe it has.
Happened like 3.5 hours. That was actually longer than I thought we were gonna go. Like much longer. So I'm good to call it there if you want to. I'm down to talk more later. But I think that was.
I have one or two very quick questions for you.
Sure, hit me.
Number one, should I go to GCX?
I mean, I have been there most years. It's like the place if you do want to meet a lot of Destiny people, Destiny creators. I know they are trying to get away from like, the stigma, for lack of a better term, of being like, this is the Destiny meetup event. But there's still a lot of Destiny creators that go down there to, to meet up and see each other and all that kind of stuff. So if that is something that is of interest to you, then I would say sure.
Okay. Because I've not been sure, like, there seems to be a lot of people very enthusiastic about it, but I wasn't sure if, as the Destiny community is in this sort of weird place of between the past 10 years and whatever the future is going to be like, if people were still sort of, like, are there people that have just quit Destiny in the last year? They've just been like, well, I had my 10 years, I'm done. And so, like, therefore, is it going to be... Yes, yeah, and just community members wise as well.
Oh, I mean, yeah, totally. But I mean,
okay.
like, I'll tell you a situation that happened last year. Like, I'm still not sure if I'm going this year, but last year I didn't want to go because I was afraid that Final Shape was like not gonna hit and people were gonna be disappointed. And my shtick at GCX, since they've been doing them for over 10 years now, or maybe this is the 10th year, I forget. I stand on the show floor every day, all day, and all I do is talk with people. That's all I do. 6, 8, 12 hours a day, both days. So I did not want to have a 2-day eulogy for the game. And so Final Shape comes out,
fair.
and it's like pretty good, and like people are pretty happy. And I'm like, all right, fine, we'll go. And then 2 days after, Bungie announced a whole load of layoffs after I had already agreed to go and book tickets and this and that. So I had to be like, God damn it. Now this is all I'm going to talk about. So there are still plenty of creators in the space. Obviously, we have had some people quit or, you know, move on to other projects or whatever. But there's still quite a healthy amount of people in the Destiny community who showed up last year. I can't attest to this year. I don't know what that's going to look like, but last year there was still a good amount.
Okay, it may well be a thumbs up. I might well go. And the second question. So basically, this is the plan for the content schedule of all these raids and dungeons and stuff that I've got to do blind. Are there any specific raids, assuming that we do the model where it's like 5 content creators playing dumb, assuming that works, we'll see with Last Wish. Are there any that would be especially good for you to be a part of for any reason? Like, obviously, people are like 2402 with Last Wish, so that sort of is aligned with you spiritually. Are there any others that are like, this is the Datto experience?
I mean, I've been around for like literally every single one. The ones that I've gotten closest on are Vow the Disciple, and Last Wish, and technically Crown, but like that's not in the game anymore.
Okay. Rest in peace.
I don't know. Honestly, like almost any of them, really. I can't guarantee that I would be able to do every single one.
No, of course.
But like, if you come to me with, you know, with a time frame and like what the goal is and all that, if my schedule works out, I can definitely hop into a raid.
Sick. Okay, amazing. This has been
this is
so
a lot of
much
fun,
fun.
man. Yeah, love getting
Marrying
some
of
outside perspectives in here. You know, it's very, very insightful. Very, very insightful. And again, you're one of very few who I feel like has done quite a lot of due diligence for this game, and I thank you for it.
Of course, man. It's been my pleasure. We need to catch you up on some Zombies Easter eggs at some point.
All right,
so
I'm down.
Get you solving some Zombies Easter eggs. I'm sure chat will enjoy
Okay.
the chaos that will come.
1 or 2.
Hell yeah, brother. All right. Talking a bit.
Have a good one, dude.